Hey there, TJ here, and welcome to Yeah The Dees, where I'm going over our loss to the Pies in the qualifying final, and we'll also be giving my thoughts on the round 2 AFLW match against the Giants. Firstly, we'll get into the qualifying final. I actually recorded this video yesterday, but as I went to edit it today, I found it had no audio. So yay, I'm here again, but at least I know the results of the Maynard Tribunal case now, so I'll get into that a little bit later. I found this an incredibly frustrating game, and I think a lot of hard questions probably need to be asked of some players because they just weren't hard at the ball to begin with in a final, and we've been here before. Last year we had some insipid performances, mainly due around injury and personnel not being fit enough, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, this was another game lost through terrible forward craft and goal kicking, and it felt like watching the GWS game all over again. We really lost this in the first quarter. To be smashed at the contest like that was, very disappointing. In terms of selection, there was more bigger surprises for Collingwood than for us. Thought Noble getting dropped for the first time since Fly's taken over was a surprise. Also, not having Ginnivan start the game. Hibberd coming in was great for experience. He was pretty decent, but I really felt like James Jordan should have been the sub instead of Bailey Laurie for finals. Having a player with a bit more experience would have been a lot better, but we'll get into that in a bit more detail, so let's get into the game. Just want to start with talking about Mason Cox and his impact. So he just drove his knee straight into Max Gawn at the first bounce, and that really sort of set the tone for the way that Collingwood were going to attack us. And he's just a real dog of a player, isn't he? The way that he dove into Petrarca's leg and holding it and twisting it, trying to injure him, was really, really disgusting. I think he should have been reported for rough conduct for that one. He need Gawn at every chance and won the first 9 hit-outs against him. Just really took the game away from Gawn at the start, but Gawn owned him for the rest of him, which was really, really good. I'll start with the back line. It was interesting that we went in with a 2-person tall back line, which I don't think's really worked well all year. However, we did keep Collingwood to 60 points, which is a very beatable score. We got jumped by those 2 goals pretty quickly, and Bobby Hill just got out and used his assets to be able to kick these goals. I thought Hibberd might have been playing him in the first, but had some differing information there, so might have been Judd. But I felt like Hibberd was fantastic for the following 3 quarters. But really, when it comes down to it, it's not on the back line. Like, Bobby took his moments, and they were lucky on turnover in a few instances of play and capitalised. Collingwood had a 6-goal-1 lead from turnover very early in the game. And that was the difference. It was good for us to keep Jamie Elliott goalless and keep Collingwood to 37 entries for the game. So it was a great performance from the back line. In terms of the Maynard Angus incident, I felt really sick after Gus went down, and it was incredibly tough for the players to deal with a situation like that and come back into the game. We were all sitting in the stands thinking that this could be career ending for Gus, and this is all these guys, one of their best mates. Like, this is a guy that runs the win the morning, win the day sessions before training starts. Like, he is a heart and soul club player, and for him to be knocked out cold for 2 minutes, and Clayton Oliver and Christian Petrarca are there turning him on his side so he doesn't choke on his tongue, and all the other things going around that, it was incredible for them to be able to come back and stay in the game and not get blown out after not get completely blown out after that happened, where Collingwood did go on to kick 2 more goals in that quarter. But it could have easily been a lot more with the way that it affected us. Very similar to the way Max Gawn went down in the Brisbane game. It just affects the players mentally. They're going to be thinking about it in the back of their minds when there's a little break in play and that sort of thing, and that just takes you that little step off the game. And that's the huge difference here in this game was Angus not being available. I'd rate him as probably our 3rd or 4th most important player because he can play anywhere on the ground and he makes the right decisions all the time. Now, for the situation with Brayden Maynard, I'm really surprised that he got off, mainly because I feel like it was 2 actions in the way that he approached that smother. So he's jumped up in the air, and then instead of coming down with his hands in front of him as someone normally would when they're falling, he decided to go in with the shoulder and leant down and forward. And the AFL didn't argue that point. They didn't argue that he turned his shoulder towards Angus in that instance, and that's where I think he should have been suspended. I believe wholeheartedly that Brainard tried to make him earn it because he's that kind of player, and I should have been suspended for it in the end. Now he's gotten away with practically murder. He's gotten away with knocking a player out, and I've never seen that in a situation where someone's gone for a smother before. So that's what makes me think that it's really not a football act, because it's not something that we see all the time. It was like when we saw Toby Green kick someone in the face. It's like, we know that that's not a football act. We know that, yeah, he's going for a mark, but we don't see that every week, because if it was a football act, more footballers would be doing it. So I'll just keep my thoughts on that pretty short, because, you know, the situation's already happened. The AFL's not going to appeal or push for a suspension, so just is what it is. Also, huge shame on Michael Christensen for trying to throw it out. He's a former Collingwood player, and I think that's quite disgusting. It just shows how allegedly corrupt, I should say, the AFL seems to be on the outside looking in. Mentioned before that, I think Bailey Laurie as a sub was a huge mistake. We should have had Jordan as the sub. He's played 17 games this year, and in those 17 games, we're 12-5. So he's tended to have a bit of a decent impact. In terms of player ratings, he's ranked like 6th or 7th best for us, yet can barely get a game in our side, which is really disappointing. So I'm not sure what's happening there. We'll just get into our goal kicking and forward structure. And I sat down the City end, 4th row from the front. So for 2 quarters, I had a really, really good view of what was happening with the forwards, and they just weren't moving at all. They weren't leading to space. They weren't giving the midfielders options to go to kick to. There was nothing obvious for them to kick to ever in that whole game. And that comes down to forward craft and not moving at all. Of course, when we're playing our forward half turnover game, and, you know, in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th quarter, it's spent 60 to 70% of the game in our forward half. So that means that we do have a very flooded forward line, and Collingwood are a superb back line team. Credit to them. But yeah, it comes down to the forwards that didn't lead, and they needed to lead, and it just wasn't happening. And I'm also not sure why we went with 4 medium tools in JVR, T-Mac, Fritsch and Smith. We haven't done that all year, so it seemed a bit weird to go with that. Fritter and T-Mac definitely look like guys that, you know, were playing their first and second games in the sides. T-Mac looked a little slow to me, and unfortunately JVR is going to get suspended with that hit on Dan McStay, which is fair enough for him to cop a week for. I think that means that we definitely have to bring Grundy in this week. But yeah, we've just run out of options with Petty and Melksham going down, Ben Brown not being fit enough. So we really need to look at bringing in another big forward into our team. When it comes down to our goal kicking, kick straight, and we run over them in the end. We kicked 7-11 and had 8 total misses. We kicked 7 majors from 26 shots on goal, where Collingwood had kicked 9 goals, 6 and had a single miss. So it's astounding inaccuracy from us and pretty decent accuracy from Collingwood. Lots of potential goals that didn't go there. We had 3 out on the full in the last quarter, like 4 or 5 for the whole game. 4 behinds that easily should have been goals. Potential goal for Cozzy in the second, where Fritsch didn't shepherd the defender and it got touched, and that could have, you know, really swung some momentum if that had gone our way. Van Rooyen didn't have a shot on goal, but he wasn't the problem. He was leaping at everything that he could, putting on body contact and all that. In the end, 4 goals from 14 shots is just not enough. In terms of inside 50s, I'm really upset because we should have won with the amount that we had. If we had 5 minutes longer in the game, we probably get on top. We probably kick those 7 points. Also, Gus being knocked out is definitely a 7-point swing, because that means that we can't put Petrarca in the forward line at all. He has to basically play midfield, because we had no Jordan to put in there. You could put Sparrow in for a bit, but he's a relief midfielder, so he's going to be there. Well, one of those 3, and by those 3 I mean Clary, Viney and Track are having a rest. But yeah, 69 inside 50s is absolutely ridiculous. We had 32 more inside 50s, so that they are coming back in and out because their backline's marking it, kicking out, we're intercepting and going back in. But 38 of those inside 50s were absolutely bombed in, which was a stat that I heard today on SEN. And a team hasn't done that in over 12 years, like absolutely bombing it in without a target, which is really, really crazy. I felt like Clary's probably a bit of a cause of that. I think he did bomb in a lot, and that might have just been from Collingwood's pressure, which was quite fantastic. We did control that game for 2.5 quarters and just could not convert our dominance on the scoreboard, which just seems to be repeating when it comes down to it. This is something that's happened to us all year, which is really, really disappointing. But yeah, Collingwood's defence was incredible, especially in the first 40 minutes. They had a pressure rating at 200. We had 18 inside 50s for that during that first 40 minutes and only got 1 goal. Where Collingwood were able to build a 27-point lead in that 40 minutes, and then the rest of the game we dominated after that. When it comes down to it, I know we can beat them. I know we can beat them in the contest consistently, and you play that game 100 times, we probably win at 95. It's been disappointing the last 3 finals appearances for Simon Goodwin, because he's gone from 5-1 in finals to 5-4. There were some other disappointing moments like Langdon and Smith playing on. There's been multiple instances of us playing on and taking advantage and not getting goals, and those sort of things can really make a difference. We had 2 or 3 shots touched on the line. We had 2 shots hit the post. We had Sparrow get holding the ball in the pocket. So definitely enough there for us to win. But yeah, now let's get into the votes and the coaches' vote. So the coaches' votes saw it like this, which means that it was split up like this. And for my votes, I gave Judd McVie 1 vote, who pretty much nailed every touch he had under really, really harsh pressure in his first final. I was really impressed with the way that he went about it. Gave 2 votes to Christian Petrarca, who did all that he could and tried to put the team on his shoulders. Gave 3 votes for Clayton Oliver, who amassed an amazing amount of disposals, but his kicking just really needs some work, but he did some really awesome things, and tackling pressure, all that sort of stuff. He did a lot of the defensive stuff. Gave 4 votes to Jake Bowie, who had a lot of composure when we needed it and did some really special things across the back line. He showed maturity above his years, which I was really impressed with. Gave 5 votes to Stephen May, who was an absolute rock in defence and the best defender for the day. He spoils everything that he can, and helps keeps us structured behind, and we wouldn't have held Collingwood to 60 points, which is a very beatable score without him. And then gave 6 votes to Max Gawn, who's just too good to believe sometimes and almost single-handedly kept us alive. Apparently already did it with a broken toe. He already had it before the game, but there is reports coming out that Cox also stomped on his foot in that game as well. So now let's get into the AFLW review before we wrap up. Now, this was a very, very enjoyable game to watch. Demons by 77 points against the Giants, even though the Giants jumped us quickly. They got the first goal within 30 seconds, had like a very lucky break out of the centre to get a goal within like 30 seconds. And then we kicked like 2 in the next minute through Kate Hoare. She was able to kick 3 goals in that first quarter, almost had a 4th in like 10 disposals, which was incredible. She's becoming an absolute game breaker, and you can see why they gave her the captaincy. She's she leads by example and just does some amazing things. Got to a little bit of an arm wrestle throughout the middle of the game. We were still able to chug on 3 goals in that second, whilst holding the Giants to basically having no opportunities. They managed to only kick 1 goal 3 in the second half of this game, and 2 goals, 1 in that first quarter, and we held them to that in that first half. So really, really impressive defensive display from everyone. Really impressive coaching display as well from Stinia, who threw a lot of the players around, gave them midfield time, and really, really exciting to watch. This last quarter was absolutely incredible. We only kicked 1 goal for that third quarter, where it was a lot of big arm wrestle, GWS playing very defensively, just to try and slow down our scoring so they could try and stay in the game. But we got the 1 goal towards the end through Kate Hoare, which was their 4th, and then go on to kick just 7 goals from absolutely dominating this team that last, just showing our fitness. Base being a lot better. Absolute great forward craft, great leading lanes. The way that we run through the midfield, handball. Lauren Pearce is phenomenal as a ruckman. She just seems really, really fit and is just absolutely monstering the other team's ruckman and giving our midfielders first use. The level that this football's gone to now is really, really incredible. So let's get into the votes and go from there. Gave 1 vote to Alyssa Bannon for her 3 goals. She got on the end of a lot of good chains from the squad and ended up with 3 goals, which should have been 4. Gave 2 votes to Sarah Lampard with 2 goals on the board. She, another great game from her. Gave 3 votes to Olivia Purcell, who got plenty of the ball, ended up with 2 goals herself as well. Gave the 4 votes to Lauren Pearce, who was just feeding it to the midfielders like no tomorrow. 5 to Tyler Hanks, who is becoming one of the best midfielders in the AFLW and is an absolute joy to watch. And then gave 6 goals to Kate Hoare, who ended up with 5 goals, 2 behinds, and just absolutely dominated the game. So that's pretty much my thoughts for last week's round of football. I am absolutely gutted that we didn't win. It was almost a throwaway loss to the Pies in the end because we lost that more than we won it. But you can't fault our mental toughness, our heart and our desire to compete, even with something absolutely heartbreaking like what happened to Angus. The team was able to get it together and still be competitive and almost pull away a win in the end. When it comes down to it, we're still a great side and we show some great ticker. And we do live to fight another day, and that's just kind of how the story lines up for us now. We've got to go and take on the Blues and take back that win that was robbed from us in the home and away season. That would have given us a home final against Brisbane. And then we will go on and be the only team to beat Brisbane up at the Gabba this season. They haven't lost there all year, so it wouldn't surprise me that we get there and we're the team to do it. And then we roll into a grand final against the Pies and get our revenge for what happened to Angus last week. The story is there for us to go and take it, so that is the challenge. We will see what happens. But yeah, I do see Grundy coming back into this match with JVR being out, the ruck relief going. T-Mac did not take 1 centre bounce on the weekend, so I see us bringing Grundy back in. And I think we'll be a much better team because of it. He is an all-Australian quality player, and this means that we might play Max forward a bit more, especially with his broken toe. So thanks very much for watching. It's been Yeah The Dees, and I'll catch you next week.
Petrarca! Oh wow! How good is that? Sparrow to make it a 3-goal, 3-pointer Dudley. He's got it! Surely not another one. Handball to Oliver, streaming through. Bang! Bang, bang, bang! Melbourne are the premiers for 2021!
And it's just so special for our club, mate, our club.
Lastly, after 57 years of pain, it's coming home.